Hey y'all, welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. Do you ever find yourself saying or thinking everyone's journey or story is different? Yeah, I see it everywhere. But is it? Is everyone's journey different? Let's unpack this week. We love to believe our story is one of a kind, that no one has ever felt this exact way, struggled like we have, or faced the specific obstacles we've had to overcome. And in some ways, that's true. Our circumstances are unique to us, but the deeper truth, our journey isn't as special as we think it is. And that's not an insult. It's actually freedom. If our pain were unique, if no one had ever experienced what we're going through or what we've gone through, then where would that leave us? Alone, without a roadmap, without solutions, without proof that people have made it through this before and come out stronger on the other side. But we're not alone. You know, millions have walked this path and other human struggles before us, and millions are going to walk the same paths after us. But the good news is that means that solutions exist. It means that someone somewhere has already figured out what works and what doesn't. Of course, people evolve and programs should evolve, or new wisdom comes out and better solutions are made. I know not every program or solution works for everyone, but there are solutions that will work for you. I'm a huge believer in our process because I've seen it work. But there is a term in AA or similar 12-step programs called terminal uniqueness. And Matt has said this term for years, and I like it. I think it's actually empowering to know that we aren't alone in our feelings or our journey. You know, it's all been done before. But this term describes a belief that our situations, our struggles, our pain are so unique that they cannot be helped by the same solutions that have worked for others. Sure, there are many different ways to go about finding a solution that works for you because we do have a lot more programs and resources out there. But to think that we are so special that no solution would work is somewhat of a slap in the face to those who have gotten through to the other side and worked hard to overcome some, really hard shit. And this doesn't just apply to addiction or being a spouse of an addict. This applies to any obstacle in life. Overwhelming anxiety, depression, losing weight to get healthier, changing careers, losing a loved one. We as humans have the same emotions and feel pain. Our circumstances and situations may differ, but we all experience the same emotions. Loss feels like a loss. Death of a loved one, end of a relationship, or maybe the loss of a dream. Where grief is grief. We have those same emotions. Betrayal does feel like betrayal, either from a spouse, from a friend, maybe even an institution that you trust. The sting of that broken trust feels the same for humans. Loneliness feels like loneliness. If you're in a crowded room or even alone in your house, the pain of isolation is universal. Fear feels like fear. The circumstances might change, but the tightness in your chest, the racing thoughts, the feelings that you have, the hesitation to move forward, it's all the same. We all feel that when we have fear. These emotions are not exclusive to you or your story. They're part of the human experience. So why do we feel as though our journeys are so unique? If so many people have walked this road before, why do we feel like we're the exception? Why do we convince ourselves that no one else could possibly understand what we're going through? Here's why. When our emotions are super intense, it makes it feel really personal. When we're deep in that pain, it feels impossible that anyone else could truly understand what we're feeling. We compare our internal struggles to others' external appearances. So social media, surface level conversations make it seem like everyone else has their shit together. We may believe our failures, our mistakes, or our circumstances are more extreme than others, which makes it even more difficult to share. Sometimes we hold on to our pain like a badge of honor, as if enduring something different or harder makes us special. And we fear our situation is unsolvable. Admitting others have faced the same struggles means admitting there are answers, ones we may not be ready to accept. So when it comes to being a spouse of an addict, we feel alone because the world revolves around how to fix an addict, how to get them help, what they're going through. No one asks about the spouse because their issue isn't necessarily life or death. However, I disagree with that because our mental health gets to a point of struggling to where it is absolutely an issue of life or death. There's so much compassion towards a struggling addict, we are left to wonder why we have the feelings we have. Why do we feel angry? Why do we feel neglected, sad, lost? confused, depressed, anxious, and just feel absolutely crazy. It's as though we're not meant to feel these feelings, yet we do. That will make a person feel so alone and so lost and so broken that it's no wonder we feel as though our situation is unique. But if you're a listener, you understand how your feelings and your story aren't as unique as you think, because we are finally speaking up about the spouse's journey. We get a lot of DMs where people say, you are sharing my story. You are saying exactly how I feel. I can't believe I found you because there's nothing else out there like this. But let's talk about how your journey may look different within the details, but the core struggles are similar. There are 3 paths of a spouse of an addict. 1 is staying with an addict who isn't changing. 2 is leaving an addict, or the addict leaving you. Either way, you're separated from that person. Number 3 is working on recovery together. So what are the similar struggles each one of these has? Staying with an addict who isn't changing. You may feel trapped. You may constantly change your behavior to manage the chaos. You might spend energy trying to understand rather than taking action that is best for you. You may experience these cycles of hope and disappointment, believing that love, support, or the right words will finally make a difference. You may lose your sense of self. Many times there are trauma bonds that are really difficult to break or recognize. And this is just a few things that you might be going through if you're staying with an addict, but they're very similar across the board for those who have gone through this. Leaving the addict, you might have feelings of relief, grief, guilt, or even all 3 at the same time. You may face the fear of the unknown, how to rebuild your life, how to explain the decision of leaving or trust again. Often you're going to still struggle with the emotional wounds from the years of instability, betrayal, manipulation. You may second guess your choice because sometimes the addict will start to show signs of change after you've left the situation. You learn how to co-parent. You have to deal with financial issues. There are all similar struggles people go through when leaving an addict. And then there's working on recovery together. So you have to face the hard truth that sobriety alone does not fix the damage. You learn how to navigate rebuilding trust, how to renegotiate roles within your relationship because there was an unequal partnership. You have to find that equalness, finding the balance in a new version of your relationship. You grieve the old relationship. You have these risks of falling into the same old patterns, if personal healing isn't prioritized alongside the addict's recovery. You still have to do work of personal healing because addiction is only part of the problem. The emotional wounds, the patterns, the self-betrayal, these don't disappear just because the partner gets sober. And again, these struggles are similar. People have gone through all of these and there are solutions to get through it. So there's a certain comfort in believing that your story is different, because if it's different, maybe the rules don't apply. Maybe you don't have to face hard truths. Maybe you can find an exception to the reality others have had to accept. But the belief that your story is different can trap you. If you think that no one understands, you're not going to seek help from those who have been there. If you think your situation is too complex for solutions, you're going to resist taking action. If you think your pain is different, you're going to convince yourself that healing isn't possible because you're the one person who can't be helped. But you're not the exception. And that's the best news that you could ever hear, because if others have walked this path before you, if others have healed, rebuilt, found themselves again, then that means that you can too. So there's a gray area of how our journeys are the same, but not. And I want to go through how our journeys are different and then touch on what makes them similar. So the circumstances are unique. There's no denying that. Some spouses stay in the relationship, some leave. Some partners are functional addicts, while others are full blown into destruction. Some betrayals involve physical infidelity. Others involve the emotional dishonesty, neglect, and financial ruin. Some partners get sober and rebuild. Others never change. The external challenges are different. Some people have kids to consider. Some have financial security, while others are completely dependent. Some have family and friends for support, and others feel completely isolated. And then the timeline of healing does vary. Some people recognize the problem and start working on themselves quickly. Others stay stuck in denial or confusion for years before they are ready to face the truth. And some people do the work and start feeling whole again in a year. Others take much longer to unravel the damage. So yes, from the outside, it looks like every journey is different, but underneath all of these differences, there are undeniable patterns. So how everyone's journey is pretty similar. Addiction in a relationship leaves wounds. Always. It doesn't matter if your spouse was high functioning or if their addiction was chaotic. You were impacted. The lies, the betrayals, the emotional neglect, the instability, the financial issues, all of these things change you as a person. The emotional experience follows a pattern. Again, betrayal feels like betrayal. The details may differ, but the gut-wrenching pain of broken trust is universal. Fear feels like fear. The fear of leaving, the fear of staying, the fear of the unknown. These emotions show up in every story. And then self-doubt sounds the same in every head. Was it really that bad? Am I overreacting? Did I make the right choices? These are questions that every spouse asks themselves. So healing is necessary no matter the outcome. It doesn't matter if you left or stayed or if your partner got sober. You still have healing to do. Time alone doesn't heal. The emotional damage doesn't disappear just because circumstances change. If you don't do the work, the patterns repeat in a new relationship, in how you view yourself, in how you trust, in how you respond to conflict. It all follows you. And the path to healing is not mysterious. There's no special version of healing for people who had it worse or easier. Every person is recovering from the impact of addiction, and they have to work through the same fundamental steps. Recognizing the full impact of the relationship, rebuilding self-trust and self-worth, setting boundaries and enforcing them, unraveling the unhealthy patterns that you adopt while in survival mode, you learning how to create a fulfilling life that isn't dictated by someone else's choices, and so much more. It's the same across the board, and this is why we created Independently Strong. It's not about what your partner is doing, whether you've stayed or left, or how different your situation feels. It's about what you can do to take back your life. It's about rebuilding your confidence to make decisions that align with your true values. It's not about looking at your character defects and seeing your part in this. Sure, we discuss some enabling behaviors, intentional or not, and get into some self-awareness practices, but it's not meant for you to see your part in all of this. It's so much deeper and incredibly empowering, and it freaking works. So healing is not something you might need depending on your journey. It's something you must do because your future is going to depend on it. And if you have kids, they depend on your healing as well. So why must we heal no matter what journey we're on? One of the biggest traps spouses of addicts fall into is believing that their situation is so unique that certain paths of healing don't apply to them. They may think, if my partner gets sober, things will get better on their own. Or if I leave, I'll be fine because the problem was then. Or I've heard, I don't need help, they do. My situation is different. Other people don't understand what I've been through. But here's the truth. No matter where you are in your journey, staying, leaving, or rebuilding, you've been impacted by addiction, and that impact doesn't go away on its own. So healing is not optional. Addiction warps reality. It does not fix itself. Living with addiction changes you. It will make you feel crazy. You may feel like you've lost yourself. You may not trust yourself. You may have had to live in survival mode at some point to where you're unable to think clearly or set boundaries or stick up for yourself. Maybe you've learned some unhealthy coping mechanisms yourself. You may have triggers. You may have uncontrollable anger, and so much more. We've addressed these in a larger episode before, but these things don't magically reset just because they got sober or you left. And leaving doesn't erase the emotional damage. Many spouses believe that if they leave, they will naturally heal over time. But time alone does not heal wounds. Intentionally doing the work does. Without healing, the emotional scars from an addicted relationship follow you into the next one until you've healed. This is why I don't recommend dating quickly after a relationship has ended. There's a lot of healing to do, and you can't just shove the issues under the rug. We have to understand how our relationship truly impacted us and heal from that. Learn new coping mechanisms. Learn to trust ourselves again so we are able to actually trust someone else or not trust them. Because when we trust ourselves, we know who we can and cannot trust. We need to learn how to manage our triggers, process our emotions, communicate differently. We need to grieve and also unravel many years of damage that has occurred. It may not have been our fault, but it is our responsibility. And if we don't heal from these things, we will continue the same patterns of uncomfortable behavior. And staying in a relationship without healing leads to the same patterns as well. If your partner is in recovery and you haven't done the work to heal yourself, you risk falling back into the same dynamic. Even in recovery, a relationship can still carry unresolved wounds, which is why both partners need to heal, not just the addicted person. Some people become used to the chaos that the shift in recovery is really challenging to navigate as well. The betrayal, emotional neglect, and trauma don't disappear. It doesn't matter if your partner was high functioning or if they never physically hurt you. Addiction itself is a form of betrayal. Their choices affected your mental, emotional, and sometimes even physical health. Those betrayals need to be processed, or again, they will continue to shape the way you see yourself, your relationships, and trust. And healing is about you, not them. This is a very important point. Healing is about reclaiming your identity, your power, and your ability to live a fulfilling life. It's not about waiting to see if they change. It's not doing it for them. It's not about punishing them for what they did. It's about making sure that no matter what happens, you are whole. So the problem with the phrase, everyone's journey is different. I mean, it's often used as a way to validate different experiences. But in reality, I've seen it to where it can encourage stagnation, because it can suggest that healing is optional and that some people don't need to do the work, or that there's no clear path forward. But the truth is, healing is a necessity no matter if you stay or go. The circumstances may be different, but we all need healing. And I know people say that our story is different. It's unique. Some people will say, well, he got sober, so your story is different. Y'all, I still had to heal. I still had to learn new coping skills. I still had to build myself up. I still had to acknowledge reality and how my relationship with an addict shaped me. I still had to learn to trust myself and my instincts again. It doesn't just magically change when they get sober, or if we leave a relationship, we still have to heal. This concept also applies when we are struggling with anxiety or depression. We aren't special. We aren't different. Learning how to navigate doing the work is what makes change. Being intentional. Again, our circumstances may be different, but there are solutions. Let's talk about weight loss and working out, for example. Like, I follow some health accounts on IG, and I see where some people will say, we have the same 24 hours in a day, or have a sleep schedule because you need your sleep for a healthy body. And I giggle a bit because, like, tell me you don't have kids without telling me you don't have kids. You know, some solutions are different when we have other responsibilities. I won't be on a sleep schedule because of kid activities and school. And those of you who have kids under 5, it makes it even more challenging to have a perfect routine. We don't sleep as moms. We don't have the same 24 hours as everyone else. We have obligations where our children do need to come first. However, there are small things that we can do that will benefit our health. Eating whole foods, drinking water, being mindful of what goes into our bodies, making some time to get some movement in, but it doesn't have to be a super crazy routine. Do what you can and realize what's in your control. So yeah, we have different circumstances, but there are solutions to them. We aren't as unique as we believe, and that's not a bad thing. There's a verse in the Tao from Dr. Wayne Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life book that says to take the word special out of your vocabulary. And I love that. I love that I'm not special, because that means I'm not alone. There are solutions to almost every problem we have. The solutions may not be what we want, but they are what we need. So let's change. Everyone's journey is different to something like everyone's details are unique, but the way forward isn't. This means healing is necessary no matter what your circumstances look like. You're not alone in how you feel and how to move forward. We have the solutions for you, but it's up to you to do the work. Take it as an empowering message to know that you aren't the only one who has gone down the road you are currently going down. There are solutions. I could go on and on this topic and seriously break down this phrase in all different ways, but I'll leave you with the basics for today. I love breaking down different phrases, questioning the meanings, and sharing my perspective, even if it doesn't align with your beliefs. I like to have these discussions because it opens our minds to different views, which helps us become even more gray area thinkers. So if you have a phrase you'd like me to break down, post about it in the community or send me an email at paige@twfocouple.com. Maybe you've heard some recovery phrases that just don't sit well with you, or some growth-oriented phrases that you maybe don't understand. I don't know. Just let me know if there is a phrase on your mind you want me to dig deeper into. So that's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye.